In our last episode, we left off at a turning point. The Qin war machine, the most efficient, most terrifying military force on earth, had gone strangely silent. The young king who inherited this superpower was only 13 years old. His father was dead. His mother controlled the court. For nearly a decade, Ying Zheng was a king in name only. Real power was divided among three figures: his ambitious mother, Queen Dowager Zhao, Chancellor Lü Buwei, the brilliant merchant who had steeled the state for over a decade, and a man whose name would spark the greatest scandal of the age, Lao Ai. They thought they could control him. They were wrong. This is the story of how a teenager king observed from the shadows, took back his throne, and launched the most devastating military campaign China had ever seen. To understand Ying Zheng's struggle, you first need to understand the anatomy of his isolation. When he took the throne in 246 BC, each of the three people surrounding him held a piece of his kingdom. Each of them would eventually become his enemy. The first was his mother, Queen Dowager Zhao. Her lineage in the court began long before her son was born. In her youth, she was a dancer and a concubine of Lü Buwei, a wealthy merchant from the state of Wei. But Lü Buwei possessed a grand political vision. He wanted to put a forgotten Qin prince on the Qin throne, a man named Zhi, then a desperate hostage in the enemy capital of Handan. Lü Buwei gave the beautiful dancer to Zhi, a calculated transaction in his grand political investment. In 259 BC, she gave birth to a son in Handan, the future Ying Zheng. Yet, a dark whisper followed the boy from his first breath, a rumor that would challenge his legitimacy for the rest of his life. Was the merchant his real father? The official historical records are clear that Zhi was the biological father. But in the corridors of power, the rumor never died. It followed Ying Zheng from the gutters of Handan all the way to the throne of Qin. When King Zhi died suddenly in 247 BC, the trap closed. Queen Dowager Zhao and Chancellor Lü Buwei seized absolute control of the court. But as a boy king approached maturity, the regents grew anxious. To protect their position, they introduced a dangerous variable into the royal orbit, a man whose blind ambition would nearly destroy the dynasty from within. His name was Lao Ai, and his entry into the historical record reads like a cautionary tale of what happens when a secret political alliance turns into a fatal obsession. According to historic sources, Queen Dowager Zhao, Chancellor Lü Buwei, had remained lovers long after she became the king's mother. But as Ying Zheng grew older and more perceptive, Lü Buwei panicked. He knew the exposure would mean immediate ruin. He needed an exact strategy, a destruction to occupy the queen. And he found Lao Ai. Lü Buwei introduced him to the palace under a dangerous deception. He was present as a eunuch. The chancellor heavily bribed the officials in charge. The required castration was executed on paper only. Lao Ai entered the state's most restricted chambers with his anatomy intact, his identity forged, and his direct path to the queen's bedchamber secured. The queen was delighted. Her relationship with Lao Ai produced two sons. secret children who would become Ying Zheng's half-brothers. Lao Ai grew arrogant. He was granted the title Marquis of Chongqing by Queen and rewarded with vast lands. This wasn't just a placeholder title. In Qing's hyper-strict military meritocracy, giving a commoner a marquis rank with independent land and revenue was an absolute insult to the entire general class. Lao Ai gathered over 1,000 retainers. He began to act like a king himself, calling himself the second father of the Qin ruler. Think about that. A fake eunuch calling himself the father of the king, and the king's mother letting him. But the scandal didn't stay hidden for long. In 238 BC, Ying Zheng traveled to Yangcheng for his coronation ceremony at the Qin Palace, the ritual that would finally give him full power. While he was there, Lao Ai got into a violent argument with Yan Shu, the custodian of the king's private treasury. Lao Ai beat him, humiliated him, and threatened him. Yan Shu went straight to the king and told him everything. The fake castration, the two secret sounds, the plot to put one of them on the throne. Ying Zheng ordered an immediate investigation. Lao Ai knew he was finished, so he made a desperate move. He forged the king's seal and the Queen Dowager's seal. He mobilized every force he could control: county troops, palace guards, cavalry, mercenaries from the western tribes, and his own private army of retainers. Thousands of men, perhaps tens of thousands, moved into position around Yangcheng and Xinyang. But Ying Zheng had been watching. He already had 3,000 elite soldiers waiting at Qin Palace. Ying Zheng didn't hide in a closet. At 21 years old, facing his mother's lover who wanted to butcher him, he unsheathed his own sword, the famously long chain-brown sword, and personally authorized his loyal generals to execute anyone wearing Lao Ai's colors. It was a single night, blood-soaked siege. The rebellion split into two fronts. One force attacked the palace at Yangchang and was smashed. The survivors turned and marched on Xianyang. The battle raged through the streets of the capital. Hundreds were killed. Ying Zheng's general, Lord Changping and Lord Changwen, crushed the rebellion. Lao Ai fled. The king issued a bounty that echoed across the empire. Whoever captured Lao Ai alive receive 1,000,000 coins. Whoever kills him receive 500,000. Lao Ai was caught within days. He was tied to 5 chariots and torn apart, a execution called chalia, or brutal dismemberment. His followers, 20 of his closest allies, were beheaded, and their heads displayed on poles. 4,000 families were stripped of their titles and exiled to the mountains of Shu. And the 2 children, Ying Zheng's own half-brothers, were stuffed into sacks and beaten to death. He never forgave his mother. He never forgot that she had chosen someone else over him. That kind of a wound doesn't heal. But Ying Zheng wasn't finished. The investigation into Lao Ai's rebellion had uncovered a deeper truth. It was Lü Buwei who had introduced Lao Ai to the Queen Dowager. Lü Buwei had created this monster, and now the king would make him pay. Initially, Ying Zheng did not execute his former guardian. Perhaps he remembered that Lü Buwei had served his father faithfully, that he had helped turn Qin into the superpower it had become. Instead, the king, stripped Lü Buwei of his title as chancellor and exiled him to his fief in Henan. But Lü Buwei's influence didn't end with his exile. A year later, diplomats and lords from across the warring states still traveled to Henan to pay him homage. They sought his advice. They treated him like a king in waiting. When Ying Zheng heard this, he wrote Lü Buwei a letter. It was short, cold, and devastating. What merit have you done to Qin to be granted the land of Henan? What bond do you have with Qin to be called second father? Then came the final blow. Your entire family is to be banished to Zhu. Lü Buwei read between the lines. He understood unspoken message. If he didn't kill himself, the king would do it publicly, and his family would suffer. So, in 235 BC, Lü Buwei drank a cup of poisoned wine and died. Qin lost the architect of its rise, but Ying Zheng had gained something far more valuable: absolute control over his kingdom. And once he had that, he was never going to let it go. But the purge didn't stop with Lü Buwei. The same year, Ying Zheng's own half-brother, Zheng Zhao, was leading a Qin army on campaign against Zhao. He was young, popular, and backed by powerful figures at court. Some even whispered that he should have been the heir instead of Ying Zheng. Now he was at the front, with an army at his command. Then, without warning, he turned. Not just defected, he issued a proclamation. A public declaration that the king in Shenyang, the capital, was not the true son of the late king. That Ying Zheng was the bastard of Lü Buwei, a merchant's son sitting on a throne that belonged to someone else. The world were incendiary. They cut directly into the oldest wound Ying Zheng carried, the whisper that had followed him from the gutters of Handan. Some historians say Zheng Zhao was manipulated by his general, a man named Fan Yuji. Others say he genuinely believed his cause was just. What matter is this? He raised the banner of rebellion not just against the king, but against his legitimacy. He challenged the one thing Ying Zheng could never tolerate. Ying Zheng responded the only way he knew how. The rebellion was crushed. Zheng Zhao died in the city of Tuanliu, whether in battle or by execution. History does not clearly say. What is certain is his fate. His followers were executed. His name was erased from the royal records. He was made to disappear, as if he had never been born. And the general who had marched with him, Fan Yiqi, did not die with him. He fled. He crossed the border into Yan, carrying with him the knowledge of what he had done, and the certain knowledge that Ying Zheng would never forgive him. For Ying Zheng had just learned a brutal lesson. Blood meant nothing. Loyalty was everything. Then came the decree that nearly cost Qin its future. Blinded by paranoia and the betrayal of his inner circle, Ying Zheng ordered all foreign advisors expelled from the court. One of them was Li Su, a brilliant strategist from Tu. Before leaving, Li Su wrote a letter that was masterclass in psychological trapping. He reminded the king of his own taste. You surround your bed with women from Zhao. you decorate your sword with jade from Hu, and you listen to the music from him. If you filter the world by its origin, why do you only reject foreign brands while enjoying foreign luxuries? The mountain don't reject stones, so they become tall. The rivers don't reject streams, so they become deep. Reject foreign talent, and the Qin will be the poor for it. Ying Zheng read the letter. The raw, pragmatic truth of it shattered his paranoia. He repealed the decree. Li Si stayed, and with him, so did Qin's future. The same king who slaughtered his half-brothers and exiled his mother had the wisdom to listen to a stranger who insulted his hypocrisies. That's the Ying Zheng worth remembering. Not just the tyrant, but the survivor. The one who knew when to be ruthless and when to be practical. With his enemies destroyed and his court under his control, Ying Zheng could finally begin what his predecessors had dreamed of, the unification of China. But before swords could be drawn, a shovel needed to strike the earth. The story of the Zheng Guo Canal is one of the great ironies of history. It begins not with an engineer, but with a spy. In 237 BC, the state of Han, the weakest of 7 warring kingdoms, and the one closest to Qin, was terrified. The Qin war machine had already devoured its neighbors. Han knew it was next. So the Han king devised a desperate scheme. He would send his best hygienic engineer, a man named Zheng Guo, to Qin with a proposal. Zheng Guo would convince the Qin court to undertake a massive irrigation project, a 300-mile canal connecting the Jing and Luo rivers. The goal? Exhaust Qin's resources, tie up its manpower for years, delay the inevitable invasion. The plan worked, but not in the way Han had hoped. The Qin court focused and always on strengthening the state, approved the project, and for years, thousands of neighbors dug the canal. But here is the twist. Halfway through construction, the Qin court discovered the plot. Zheng Guo was arrested. He was interrogated, tortured even. And when he stood before the king, the same Ying Zheng who had just eliminated Lao Ai and Lü Buwei, Zheng Guo did something remarkable. He didn't beg for mercy. He made an argument. "You're right," he told the king. "I was sent here to waste your resources. But the canal, even if it was begun as a trick, will benefit China for 1,000 years. Han has bought a few years of life, but Qing will gain eternity." A long silence. The king did not move. Then he spoke. "Finish it." Ying Zheng, who understood power and pragmatism better than any leader of his age, made a decision that reveals the essence of his genius. He let Zheng Guo live. He let him finish the canal. The canal transformed the Guanzhong Plain, Qing's heartland, from arid, unproductive land into the most fertile agricultural region in China. Grain yields increased 6-fold. The land within the passes became the land of abundance. 5 million acres of new farmland, grain so plentiful that old grain piled up in the warehouse while new grain was still coming in. And with that abundance, Ying Zheng could now feed the largest army China had ever seen. The irony is almost too perfect. The spy's plot gave Qin exactly what it needed to conquer everyone else. Ying Zheng knew not all his enemies were gone. One man had slipped through his fingers, a general named Fan Yuqi. The same Fan Yuqi who had marched with Zheng Zhao, who had fled when the rebellion collapsed. Now he was a fugitive, carrying the weight of his choice. Ying Zheng responded the only way he knew how. He slaughtered Fan Yuqi's entire family. Then he issued a bounty that would echo through history. Whoever delivered Fan Yuqi's head would receive 1,000 pieces of gold and a title of 10,000 households. Imagine what that felt like for Fan Yuqi. His family was dead. His king wanted his head. Every person he met could be the one who turned him in for 1,000 gold pieces. He fled from state to state, but the bounty traveled faster than he did. Every gate closed before him. Every eye watched him for the price on his head. Finally, he crossed into Yan, and there he found something he had not found anywhere else. A man willing to take him in. His name was Prince Dan of Yan. To understand why Prince Dan made this choice, you need to know what had happened between him and Ying Zheng. Years earlier, in the streets of Handan, they had been boys together, both hostage in a foreign city, both outsider, both alone. They had played together, grown up together, shared the same deep loneliness. But the shadow of Handan affected them differently. For Prince Dan, it bred a desire for survival. For Ying Zheng, it bred a calculated ice malice. Decades later, when the Qin army would eventually crush Handan, Ying Zheng would not just send an administrator. He would ride into that city in person, locate every single local family that had bullied him and his mother during his childhood, and bury them all alive. He was a man who cleared his childhood debts with blood. When Prince Dan later came to Qin as a hostage himself, the boy he remembered was gone. In his place sat a tyrant who looked at him with cold indifferences. Prince Dan requested permission to return to Yan. Ying Zheng refused. The request was made again. The answer was the same. It's said that Ying Zheng set an impossible condition. When crows turned white and horses grow horns, then you may go. Prince Dan never forgot those words. He never forgave the man who spoke them. So, when Fan Yuqi arrived at his court, a man who had lost everything, whose family had been slaughtered, whose head carried a bounty placed by the same king, Prince Dan saw something he recognized, not just a refugee, but a mirror. Against the advice of his minister, he gave Fan Yuqi shelter. What Prince Dan didn't know was this: he wasn't hiding a refugee, he was hiding a curse. Years later, that curse would arrive in the capital of Qin, not as an army, but as a wooden box. Inside it, the head of Fan Yuqi. Next to it, a road map of Yan's richest territory. And between them, a dagger. But that is a story for another episode. For now, Ying Zheng's gaze had already turned eastward. The granaries were full, the armies were ready, and the first target was clear: the state of Han. Small, weak, and standing directly in the path of Qin's advance. The machine was ready. It was time to start the war. In our next episode, the machine finally moves. The first target falls without a fight, but the second target, Zhao, will not be so easy. Behind its walls stands the only general who has ever stopped Qin's advance, and Qin will have to destroy him before they can destroy his kingdom. That's a story of episode 3, The Fall of Han and Zhao. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe so you don't miss part 3. I'm Su, and this is The King's Revenge.